If you're listening to this right now, chances are you are losing money every single month.
Yeah, which is a pretty rough realization for most people.
It really is. And, not because you're spending way too much on coffee or like failing to negotiate your phone bill or whatever. It's actually because your money is currently sitting in the wrong timeline.
Right. It's just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Exactly. And it's just this incredibly frustrating realization, because you work hard, you try to save, you look at your accounts, and yet the needle barely moves at all.
Mm-hmm. It feels like you're stuck in mud.
Totally.
Yeah.
Personal finance often feels like this, I don't know, this dense, impenetrable language where everyone else was handed a translation manual that you somehow just completely missed out on.
I hear that all the time.
Right. But so what if there was a strategic shortcut? Like a way to fundamentally restructure how you view your resources, turning all that financial chaos into a highly efficient wealth building machine.
And that is exactly the core premise we're exploring today.
It's a vital one, honestly, because the stress of managing money, or frankly, feeling like your money is managing you, is just this universal friction point.
Oh, 100%.
People are just exhausted, exhausted by systems that require constant daily maintenance. Like they need an architecture that operates independently in the background, a system that actually works for them rather than a system they have to constantly work for.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
So today we are jumping straight into an analysis of a great source text we have. It's called Strategic Financial Planning, From Stability to Wealth Creation.
It's a really fantastic framework.
It really is. And our mission for this deep dive is to basically map out a clear, actionable pathway for you to master your money. We are completely bypassing the overwhelming spreadsheets and the super generic advice you always hear.
No spreadsheets required for this one.
Right. We're breaking down the actual mechanics of wealth building so you can apply them immediately. So, okay, let's unpack this. Well, the foundational concept you really have to grasp before you even think about allocating a single dollar is understanding the opportunity cost of time.
The opportunity cost of time.
Right. The framework dictates that money management isn't just about the amounts of money. It is primarily about establishing distinct timelines.
Okay, timelines, like what?
Like short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals. And the text makes it clear. If you don't segregate your capital into these specific temporal buckets, you basically inadvertently expose yourself to massive financial risk.
I really want to break down why that segregation is so critical, because usually people just have like one big amorphous savings account.
Oh, yeah. Just the generic savings pot.
Exactly. They just throw everything in there. But if we think about it, kind of like a cross-country road trip.
I like that analogy.
Right. So your short-term money, that's like checking the tires, filling up the oil before you leave. It's the immediate foundation. If you get a flat on day one, you are not going anywhere.
You're stuck in the driveway.
Exactly. And then the midterm money, that's like hitting the major milestone cities along the road. So paying off student loans, maybe a house down payment, buying a car without financing it.
Right, the big stops along the way.
Yeah, and then the long term, that's the final destination, retirement, estate planning, generational wealth. So my question is, why is separating these timelines so crucial instead of just having that one big pot of savings?
Well, what's fascinating here is that throwing all your resources into one generic pot creates this constant, unending tug of war.
Between what?
Between your present emergencies and your future compounding. I mean, the math of wealth creation relies heavily on uninterrupted time.
Uninterrupted time, right? Yeah.
So if you have a single pool of money, human psychology dictates that the immediate loud crises, a broken transmission or a sudden medical bill, those will always take priority in your brain.
Because they're right in front of you.
Exactly. And you end up draining the very capital that was supposed to be compounding for your future.
Wow. So you essentially cannibalize your tomorrow to pay for your today.
Precisely. And let's look at the mechanics of why this fails, mathematically. Long-term wealth is built on compound interest, right? Usually in the stock market or real estate, where you're aiming for a historical, say, 7 to 10% return.
Sure.
But those vehicles are volatile in the short term. So if you put short-term money, like cash you might need to pay rent in 6 months, into a long-term vehicle, you expose yourself to what's called sequence of return risk.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah. So if the market drops 20% right when you urgently need to pay for a new roof, you are forced to sell your assets at a loss.
Which permanently locks in that loss and just completely destroys the compounding potential of those dollars.
Exactly. And on the flip side of that, if you keep long-term money in a short-term vehicle, like, say, a standard savings account yielding maybe 1%, while inflation is running at 3 or 4%.
You're just losing money.
Right. Your purchasing power is quietly bleeding out every single year. So segregating your goals by timeline ensures that your short-term money provides stability, which then allows your long-term money the uninterrupted decades it actually needs to multiply.
Okay, so knowing you need to separate these timelines is a great conceptual start.
Definitely.
But the actual friction happens when we try to, apply specific directions to those timelines. Like, we always hear about the SMART goals framework, right?
Oh, yeah. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Right. But I kind of have to push back a little bit on the achievable and time-bound aspects here.
Oh, how so?
Well, in a vacuum, setting a rigid goal makes sense. But life isn't a vacuum. We deal with sudden inflation spikes or unexpected layoffs or, crazy shifting housing markets.
Absolutely. Life happens.
So does this framework actually address how to build elasticity into these goals? Or are we just setting ourselves up to fail when the math inevitably changes? Isn't just deciding to save more money a good enough start?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the goal itself has to remain rigid in its definition. But your timeline and your contribution rate, those have to act as your shock absorbers.
Okay, shock absorbers. Explain that.
So the framework isn't about blind optimism. It's about creating a mathematical baseline. So let's look at the specific example from the text. Say your goal is saving $30,000 for a down payment in exactly 5 years.
Okay.
To do that, you need to set aside $500 a month. That is a clear, measurable roadmap.
Right. The math is straightforward.
But if inflation spikes and your living expenses jump, making that $500 completely impossible, you don't abandon the goal. You just adjust the variables.
Oh, I see. So you either extend the timeline to maybe 6 years, or you find a way to increase your income to maintain that original 5-year schedule.
Exactly. The SMART framework provides the diagnostic tool you need to realize you are off course. Because without that specific $500 a month target, a vague intention to just, save for a house, it just slowly dissolves when money gets tight.
Right, because there's no mathematical accountability telling you exactly how far behind you're falling.
Exactly.
That makes the priority of these goals incredibly important. Because if you only have a finite amount of money to direct each month, you really have to choose which bucket gets filled first.
Yes. Prioritization is essentially the ultimate defense against financial self-sabotage.
Yeah.
You've got to consider the sequence of operations.
Okay.
So if you eagerly start funneling money into an investment account to capture market returns, but you haven't actually built a baseline emergency fund, you are basically building a house on sand.
Yeah.
The moment an unexpected $1,000 expense hits, you don't have the cash. So what happens? You are forced to put that expense on a credit card charging 20 to 25% interest.
Oh, wow. Meaning any gains you made in the stock market are just instantly wiped out by the interest you're now paying to the credit card company?
Precisely. You're taking one step forward in the market and 2 massive steps back in high-interest debt. This is exactly why securing that short-term foundation is a mathematical prerequisite to long-term investing.
Okay, so for you listening right now, seriously consider your own financial landscape. What is the single most structurally important priority you need to fund today?
Yeah, that's the crucial question.
Right. Is it building that cash buffer? Or is it aggressively eliminating toxic debt? Or are you finally ready to deploy capital into long-term investments? Because once you identify that number one priority, you run into the next major hurdle.
Actually finding the cash flow to fund it.
Exactly. Which brings us to the actual mechanics of daily cash management and the psychology of the dreaded B word.
Budgeting.
Budgeting, yes.
Yeah, budgeting is so often associated with this sense of financial claustrophobia.
That's a great way to put it.
People envision themselves trapped, tracking every single latte on a complex color-coded spreadsheet. And that just inevitably leads to really high abandonment rates.
It totally does. It feels like a diet where you aren't allowed to eat anything you actually enjoy. You just give up.
Exactly.
But the mechanics of modern cash flow management, they rely way more on behavioral psychology rather than sheer willpower.
Thankfully, because willpower runs out.
It really does. So the 50-30-20 rule is a prime example of this from the text. You allocate 50% of your income to fixed needs, 20% to savings and debt reduction, and a full 30% to your wants.
Right.
And the genius of this isn't really the math, is it? It's the psychology of permission.
That is a crucial distinction. Deprivation leads to financial binging.
Final binging, wow.
That's true. If you try to save 50% of your income and leave absolutely zero room for entertainment or dining out, you will eventually snap. You'll abandon the budget entirely, and you'll overspend.
Yeah, you just buy the huge TV because you're so frustrated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By structurally mandating that 30% of your money is actually supposed to be spent on wants, you eliminate the guilt.
You create a sustainable system because it acknowledges human nature rather than constantly fighting it.
Yes.
But there is an even more aggressive alternative behavioral hack for cash flow mentioned here, which is the pay yourself first strategy.
Oh, this one is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, so before the landlord or the utility company or the grocery store gets a single dollar, your savings and investments are automatically deducted. To me, it's like airplane safety.
I mean,
It's like putting your own oxygen mask on before assisting others. You have to secure your future self's oxygen before you pay everyone else.
that is a perfect analogy.
Right. And it also reminds me of setting your alarm clock like 15 minutes fast. You intentionally trick your brain into a state of urgency so you're never actually late. By moving the savings out immediately, you basically artificially trick your checking account into poverty.
The behavioral economics behind that artificial scarcity are just profound because it attacks Parkinson's law directly.
Remind me what Parkinson's law is again.
Sure, it states that work expands to fill the time allotted. Well, in finance, spending expands to fill the money available.
Oh, totally.
Right. If you look at your checking account and you see $5,000 sitting there, your brain subconsciously green lights a weekend trip or an expensive dinner.
Because it feels like you have plenty.
Exactly. Your cognitive basically the mental effort required to make financial decisions is completely relaxed because the visual cue implies abundance.
But if you paid yourself first and that account only shows, say, $500 for the rest of the week, your brain instantly pivots to making dinner at home.
Exactly. You remove the temptation entirely because the money simply isn't there to be spent. You completely bypass the need for daily discipline. I mean, willpower is a depreciating asset. It depletes throughout the day.
Especially after a long day at work.
Yes. So paying yourself first removes willpower from the equation entirely.
Wow. You're engineering your environment so that doing the right thing just happens by default. So, okay, you've tricked your checking account into poverty, you are consistently funneling capital into your wealth-building buckets, and your net worth is growing. Now you have to protect it.
You need a fortress.
You have to build a fortress around that capital. And the first wall of that fortress is liquidity, right? The emergency fund.
Yes, absolutely critical.
We frequently hear the standard rule of thumb, save 3 to 6 months of essential expenses in cash. But what happens if you are, say, a freelancer or a small business owner?
The risk profile shifts dramatically for self-employed individuals, or really anyone with highly irregular income. A sudden economic downturn could mean a total cessation of cash flow for an extended period.
Right, it just stops.
Yeah. So in those cases, the text advises building a wall of up to 12 months of expenses. It's often entirely necessary.
Okay, I really want to debate the opportunity cost of that, though. Let's say someone's essential expenses are $5,000 a month. A 12-month emergency fund is $60,000 just sitting in cash.
That's a lot of cash.
It is. And even in a high-yield savings account earning around, 4%? That money is drastically underperforming the historical 8 to 10% of the broader stock market. You are bleeding potential returns. So at what point does the insurance premium of holding that much cash just become too expensive?
It is a phenomenal question of efficiency versus survival. And you are absolutely correct that mathematically, holding $60,000 in cash creates a significant drag on your overall portfolio growth.
Right.
The cost of that safety is indeed the lost compounding interest. However, that liquidity premium is precisely what buys you the psychological safety to take risks in other areas of your life and business.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. If a freelancer has 12 months of cash, they can comfortably decline a low-paying, abusive client and hold out for a high-value contract.
So the cash buffer actually enables career leverage.
Exactly. If they were fully invested in the market and completely cash poor, they would be forced to take bad deals just to keep the lights on.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
So the cash isn't there to earn a return. It's there to protect the assets that do earn a return and to give you operational breathing room.
Well said.
So now, what about the threats already inside the fortress? We have to talk about debt.
Yes. Debt management is where mathematical theory and behavioral reality just often collide head-on.
Because the text mentions the two dominant strategies for eliminating debt, right?
Sure.
The avalanche method and the snowball method.
Yes, two very different approaches.
Right. So the avalanche method is pure, unadulterated math. You list your debts, you find the one with the highest interest rate, and you throw every extra dollar at it while paying the minimums on everything else.
It mathematically minimizes the total amount of interest you pay over the life of the loans.
Yeah, it is objectively the cheapest way out of debt.
Right. And this raises an important question. If the avalanche method is mathematically superior, why does the snowball method, where you just ignore interest rates and pay off the smallest balances first, why does that have such a staggeringly high success rate?
Because humans aren't spreadsheets, we run on dopamine.
Precisely. We absolutely do. The snowball method leverages the science of behavioral momentum. Paying off a massive $20,000 high-interest credit card could take years.
Years of grinding.
And during those years, you feel like you are just throwing tiny rocks at a massive mountain.
Yeah.
The progress is visually agonizing, which leads to decision fatigue and really high rates of people just giving up entirely.
Right. But if you attack a small, say, $500 medical bill first, you can eliminate that in a month.
Yes.
And when that account is closed, you get a massive neurochemical reward. It just feels like a tangible victory.
And that dopamine hit provides the psychological fuel required to tackle the next largest debt. Furthermore, every time you eliminate a specific debt, you actually reduce your cognitive load.
Because there's less to keep track of.
Exactly. Having 3 debts to manage requires significantly less mental bandwidth than managing 7. So, you really have to decide your own psychological makeup. Do you possess the sheer discipline to grind out the mathematical efficiency of the avalanche? Or do you need those incremental victories of the snowball to stay engaged?
It's such a personal choice. But here's where it gets really interesting, though.
Oh.
We are so conditioned to view all debt as a financial disease that just must be aggressively cured.
We really are.
But there is a massive conceptual leap in the text when you realize that not all debt is toxic. In fact, low-interest debt, specifically a mortgage, can actually be utilized as a powerful wealth-building tool.
Oh, this is a major perspective shift.
Can we break down the mechanics of arbitrage and leverage here?
Absolutely. This requires a significant perspective shift regarding opportunity costs, like we talked about before.
Right.
Let's assume you have a mortgage with a fixed interest rate of 4%,
Mm-hmm.
and you suddenly come into an extra $10,000. Very nice. Your instinct might be to aggressively pay down that mortgage to become debt-free faster, right?
Because paying down a 4% debt is effectively guaranteeing yourself a 4% return on that money, right?
Correct. You are saving 4% in interest over time. However, if you take that same $10,000 and you invest it in a diversified index fund that historically returns, let's say, 8%.
You are earning double what the debt is costing you.
Exactly. The mortgage is allowing you to retain control of your capital, which you are then deploying to earn a higher yield somewhere else.
So you are basically borrowing money at 4% to make 8%. You just pocket the spread.
That spread is the magic of leverage. If you aggressively lock all your liquidity into the equity of your house by paying off the mortgage early,
Right.
you effectively trap that wealth in an illiquid asset.
It's just sitting in the bricks.
Right. By maintaining the low-interest mortgage, you keep your capital liquid and compounding at a higher rate in the market.
Which completely changes the entire dynamic of how we view our monthly payments.
It really does.
But, and we have to heavily underline this only works with cheap, subsidized debt, like a mortgage. If you have a credit card charging 22%, there is virtually no safe investment on the planet that will consistently outpace that.
None. High-interest debt is an absolute emergency.
Yeah.
High-interest debt destroys wealth faster than the stock market can ever build it. It must be neutralized immediately.
Okay, so what does this all mean for our day-to-day lives? We've mapped out the timelines, we've set elastic SMART goals, we are tricking our checking accounts into poverty by paying ourselves first.
We're doing great.
Right. We have built a liquid emergency fund and optimized our debt strategy. The final piece of the puzzle is maintenance. How do we keep this incredibly sophisticated machine running without it just becoming a second full-time job?
The ultimate mechanism for long-term execution here is aggressive automation. You have to remove yourself as the bottleneck in your own financial system.
I look at this kind of like a programmable smart thermostat in your house.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right. Before smart thermostats, you had to constantly walk over to the wall, turning the heat up in the morning, turning it down when you left for work, adjusting it again at night. It required this daily manual interaction.
It was annoying.
It was. But once you install a smart system, you spend maybe one afternoon doing the hard work. You calculate your ideal temperatures for different times of the day, and you just program the schedule. After that, the house just stays comfortable. The system maintains the environment independently.
And applying that exact logic to personal finance involves routing your cash flow automatically. Your paycheck hits your checking account, and within 24 hours, software automatically diverts specific percentages.
So you don't even have to think about it.
You don't even see it. Pre-tax dollars are routed directly from your employer to your 401k. Post-tax dollars are automatically pulled from your checking and deposited into a Roth IRA or a high-yield savings account for that house down payment we talked about.
The money is allocated before you even have a chance to log in and look at the balance. And the tax advantages of utilizing those specific accounts are practically a cheat code in themselves, aren't they?
They absolutely are. Understanding the mechanics of tax drag is essential.
Tax drag, what is that?
Well, if you invest in a standard taxable brokerage account, every time you sell an asset for a profit or you receive a dividend, you are taxed on that growth. Over 30 years, that tax drag can literally eat away tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars of compounding growth.
Wow. But if you automate those investments into a Roth IRA, for example, the mechanics completely flip.
Yes. With a Roth IRA, you pay the income tax upfront today. But then that money grows completely tax-free for the rest of your life.
That's incredible.
When you withdraw the compounded millions in retirement, the IRS cannot touch a single cent of the growth. Automating your investments into these tax-sheltered environments ensures you are legally shielding your compounding wealth from future taxation.
It's incredibly powerful. But, even a highly automated system isn't entirely immune to the chaos of real life. What are the behavioral pitfalls that can still derail this machine once it's up and running?
The most dangerous pitfall is definitely lifestyle creep.
Ah, yes. Lifestyle creep.
As your income increases over time, your automated savings amounts often remain static, while your consumption expands to absorb the new cash flow. You get a raise, and suddenly you upgrade your car or you rent a nicer apartment, completely neutralizing the wealth-building potential of that new income.
So you just end up living a more expensive version of paycheck to paycheck.
Exactly. To combat this, the framework requires mandatory scheduled financial check-ins. You don't need to look at your spreadsheets every day, but you must audit the system annually.
Or during major life changes, right?
Yes, major transitions, getting married, having a child, or receiving a promotion. If your income increases by 10%, you need to manually intervene and increase your automated investment contributions proportionately before you get used to spending the extra money.
Before it becomes the new normal. It all comes back to flexibility. A rigid system shatters under pressure, but a flexible, automated system adapts and survives.
And that is the ultimate takeaway. Perfection is the enemy of execution in personal finance.
Hear that again.
Perfection is the enemy of execution. A flawed plan in motion, where you are consistently buying assets every month through automation, will always outperform a perfectly optimized theoretical plan that requires perfect discipline and constant manual interaction.
Execution over optimization. I love that. So, to synthesize this roadmap for you listening, it starts with acknowledging the critical nature of time, separating your capital into short, mid, and long-term buckets to protect your compounding growth from sequence of return risk. You say elastic SMART goals, anticipating friction. You bypass willpower entirely by paying yourself first and automating your cash flow. You build a deep liquidity moat for psychological safety. You weaponize low-interest debt through leverage. And you aggressively eliminate toxic debt using either behavioral momentum or mathematical efficiency. And finally, you automate the tax-advantaged investments, stepping back to let the system run.
It is a comprehensive architecture for transitioning from merely surviving your finances to actively engineering generational stability.
It really is. But before we officially wrap up, I want to leave you with a slightly provocative thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've spent this entire time unpacking the profound mathematical and psychological benefits of aggressive automation, of basically engineering a system where you rarely have to interact with your money.
Yes.
But if you completely automate your finances, removing all the friction, the daily decisions, and the emotional connection to your cash flow, do you run the risk of taking the joy out of earning it?
Oh, wow. That is a fascinating paradox.
Right. If a computer is doing all the heavy lifting in the background, making you wealthy on autopilot, How do you maintain a sense of pride and connection to the actual fruits of your labor?
Exactly. Where's the line between financial peace of mind and complete financial detachment?
Yes. How do you stay emotionally engaged with your goals when the process requires absolutely no effort on your part? It's something to seriously consider as you set up those automatic transfers today.
It really is something to think about.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We unpacked these mechanics specifically to equip you with the tools to take control of your financial timeline. So take this architecture, build your system, and get your money moving in the right direction. Until next time.